The ballroom was filled with applause and flashing lights as one of the world's most powerful billionaires stood on stage, ready to celebrate his success, until the doors opened late and everything stopped. A tired waitress stepped inside, holding twin babies in her arms, her face marked by years of struggle she never spoke about. In that instant, the billionaire froze, his confidence shattered, his past rushing back like a storm he thought he had escaped. No one in the room knew why his hands were shaking or why his voice disappeared, but the truth standing before him was something money could never erase. What happened next would expose a secret buried for years and change 3 lives forever.
The grand ballroom shimmered with crystal lights and silent expectations, filled with powerful people dressed in perfection, all gathered to celebrate success, wealth, and achievement. Cameras were ready, champagne glasses raised, and the stage glowed beneath the billionaire who stood there, calm and confident, a man known for control, precision, and an iron grip on his emotions. But in a single heartbeat, everything shattered. The massive doors at the back of the hall opened late, drawing quiet irritation from the crowd, and that was when time itself seemed to freeze. The billionaire on stage stopped mid-movement, his breath catching painfully in his chest, his confident posture collapsing into something fragile and human. Standing at the entrance was a waitress in a worn uniform, her hair pulled back hastily, her face pale with exhaustion, and in her trembling arms were 2 sleeping twins wrapped in thin blankets. The world blurred, applause died, and a truth long buried rose violently to the surface. Before the story goes any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen struggles, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Her name was Lily, and she had never planned to be there. The event was supposed to be another long shift serving smiling strangers who never noticed her existence. Her life had been a quiet series of compromises, sacrifices, and swallowed pain. Years earlier, she had met a man who promised stability and love, a man who spoke about futures and dreams, a man who vanished the moment responsibility arrived. When she discovered she was pregnant, she didn't chase him, she didn't beg, she worked, she endured, she carried twins while standing on aching feet for endless hours, hiding morning sickness behind forced smiles, hiding fear behind professionalism. When the babies were born prematurely, life became a relentless cycle of hospital bills, night shifts, and silent tears pressed into pillows so no one would hear. The day of the event had already gone wrong before it began. Her babysitter canceled without warning, the twins had been feverish all night, and Lily had nearly called in sick, but missing a shift meant risking her job. She bundled the babies carefully, whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep, and rushed toward the venue with a heart heavy with guilt and hope tangled together. She arrived late, breathless, terrified she would be fired, but nothing prepared her for the man on stage. The billionaire's name was Daniel Hartwell, a man the world admired for his ruthless success and flawless image. He had built an empire from nothing, or so the media believed. What they didn't know was the chapter he had erased, the time when he was young, reckless, and afraid of becoming ordinary. Years ago, he had walked away from a woman who needed him because responsibility scared him more than loneliness ever could. He had buried that memory beneath wealth, power, and public respect, convincing himself it was necessary, convincing himself it was survival. But survival has a way of demanding payment. As Lily stood frozen in the doorway, the twins stirred, one tiny hand slipping free from its blanket, and Daniel saw it.
He saw the unmistakable shape of his own hands, the same curve of fingers, the same pale scar near the wrist. The room spun. His speech dissolved into silence. Applause turned to confusion. The audience didn't understand why the most powerful man in the room looked like he was about to fall apart. Lily's eyes met his, and in that instant, years of struggle, anger, regret, and unspoken truth collided. She hadn't come for him. She hadn't planned to reveal anything, but fate had decided it was time. Security moved forward, assuming she was a disruption, but Daniel lifted a trembling hand, stopping them. His voice wouldn't come. His chest tightened as the weight of everything he had avoided crashed down upon him. The twins were real. The past was real, and no amount of money could erase what stood before him. The crowd whispered, unaware they were witnessing the collapse of a carefully built illusion. Cameras kept rolling, capturing a billionaire stripped of his armor, exposed as a man facing the consequences of his choices. Lily took a hesitant step forward, her legs weak, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She wasn't there to accuse him. She wasn't there to beg. She was simply a mother who had run out of places to hide. And as Daniel stared at the children he had never known, something inside him broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply enough to change everything that followed. The silence in the ballroom stretched uncomfortably long, thick with confusion and curiosity. But for Daniel, the world had narrowed to the woman standing there and the twins cradled against her chest. Memories he had suppressed flooded back, late-night conversations filled with dreams, the warmth of believing he could be more than what he came from, the fear that had driven him to run when life demanded courage. He had told himself that leaving had been necessary, that attachment was weakness, that love was a distraction. But now, staring at the physical proof of his absence, those justifications crumbled into ash. Lily's strength had never come from being fearless. It came from doing what needed to be done despite fear. She had carried these children through illness, hunger, loneliness, and nights so exhausting she forgot what it felt like to rest. She had learned to smile through humiliation, to endure customers who spoke to her like she was invisible, to accept that life was unfair but still worth fighting for. Standing in that ballroom, surrounded by wealth she could barely imagine, she felt small, but not ashamed. She had survived. The event organizers whispered urgently at the side of the stage, unsure whether to cut the broadcast or let it continue. Daniel barely noticed. For the first time in decades, he felt something stronger than ambition: responsibility. The twins weren't symbols or mistakes. They were lives shaped by his absence. He realized then that success had never filled the hollow place inside him. It had only distracted him from it. He stepped down from the stage slowly, every movement heavy with meaning. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the billionaire approached the waitress, his expression no longer commanding, but broken open, human. Lily's hands tightened around the blankets instinctively, protective, uncertain of what came next. She had lived too long expecting nothing to trust sudden change easily. Daniel's mind raced, not with strategies or calculations, but with regret. He saw the years he missed, first steps he didn't witness, nights Lily must have cried alone, milestones he would never get back. Money could build buildings, fund charities, and silence critics, but it couldn't buy time. The twins began to cry softly, their small faces scrunching in discomfort, and Lily instinctively swayed, whispering comfort into their tiny ears. That simple act pierced Daniel deeper than any accusation ever could. He had never been there to soothe them, never known their cries, never learned their rhythms. Fatherhood wasn't a title, it was presence, and he had been absent. The audience began to sense that this was no publicity stunt. This was real, raw, and irreversible. Some felt uncomfortable, others moved, others judgmental, but no one could deny the emotional gravity of the moment. Daniel took a deep breath, steadying himself, realizing that what he chose next would define him more than any deal he had ever closed. Lily didn't ask for recognition or help. She had come late to work because life had demanded it. She had walked into that room because she had no other option, and now fate had placed the truth in front of the one man who could no longer ignore it. Daniel understood then that redemption wouldn't come from grand gestures or public apologies. It would come from consistency, humility, and time, the very things he had once refused to give. He looked at Lily, not as a memory or a regret, but as a woman who had endured what he avoided. Respect replaced fear. As the event was quietly brought to an early close, whispers turned into headlines, but Daniel no longer cared. For the first time, the future wasn't about expansion or dominance, it was about repair. And repair, he knew, would be the hardest work of his life. The days that followed unfolded without spectacle, without press conferences or carefully scripted statements. Daniel chose silence, not out of fear, but out of respect. He reached out privately, offering support without demands, presence without pressure. Lily was cautious, guarded by years of disappointment, but she allowed space, not because she trusted him yet, but because her children deserved the truth, whatever that truth became. Daniel began to learn what money could never teach him. He learned how heavy exhaustion feels when sleep comes in fragments. He learned how fragile infants are, how quickly joy can turn into panic, how love demands patience more than confidence. He showed up quietly, consistently, proving through action what words could not. Lily watched carefully, measuring sincerity not by promises but by presence. The twins grew stronger, their laughter filling spaces that had once echoed with loneliness. Lily slowly allowed herself to breathe without bracing for disaster. Daniel, stripped of his public armor, discovered a humility that reshaped him. He stopped running. He stopped hiding behind achievement. He accepted that redemption is not earned in moments, but built in choices repeated daily. Years later, people would still talk about the night a billionaire froze on stage. But the real story lived far from the spotlight, in bedtime routines, in shared responsibility, in forgiveness that unfolded slowly and imperfectly. Lily never became rich, but she became supported. Daniel never erased his past, but he faced it honestly. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that people are more than their worst decisions, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the world. Before the ending, we have one special request. Please comment below where you're watching from and what part of the story moved you the most. Your words matter more than you know. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations don't happen on stages under bright lights. They happen quietly when someone finally chooses to stay.